Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is a trainer education podcast, and we're talking about exercise selection. And this is, I'm assuming this is going to be a multi-part series because this is important information for not only trainers, but especially trainers to know, but just people in general whenever they're trying to figure out what they should do in their workouts. So there is a lot that comes with the importance of correct exercise selection. So recently, this is unrelated, but kind of sort of weird intro, is I just seen on Instagram a guy who is a trainer, and he programs for people, but he made a big post about how stupid programming was, in the sense that your program really doesn't matter. It's how well you execute your program that matters. And he's right that exercise execution and program execution matter a lot. But also, you have to be following the right damn program. So I have an idea of what the guy was really trying to do, because he sells programs, so clearly he didn't want to, talk total crap on programs, otherwise he's putting himself out of business. But he wanted to get people's attention to the fact that they could have the best program in the world, but if they aren't executing the exercises correctly, that program isn't going to help them as well as it should. Now, the contrast to what he was saying is like the exact right program does make an enormous difference. So he was kind of being like very dismissive towards that, and I just don't think he picked his language the correct way compared to what his intent for the post was. So the reason why I want to mention that is you will see people talk about like programs don't matter, it's consistency and dedication. That's a total load of bullshit, because most people who listen to this podcast are either going to be beginners, and you've heard from me from a friend or something like that, and you're here to just gain some basic information. And then a good portion of the people who are listening are trainers and people who've been lifting for multiple years. And I've gotten amazing, awesome emails from you guys where you've been doing such and such program and things just haven't been going well. So you've been dedicated. You showed up, every single workout. You've been eating well, nutrition-wise. You've been following your program, even if it's not even a training program, a nutrition program. But you've been following the program. So it wasn't dedication. It wasn't consistency that has let you down. It's the fact that your program sucked. So it was built off of incorrect science or incorrect kind of thoughts. So having the right program absolutely matters. How well you execute the program absolutely matters. It's an inclusive, all-in kind of process. You can't have one without the other. So the reason why I want to say that is because if you hear that programming doesn't matter, they're full of shit. Okay? Programming absolutely matters. Or they're trying to make a point separate of that, so maybe you can read through the lines and figure out what their point they're trying to make, but recognize that programming still does matter. So I was talking with a trainer recently, and that's what prompted the idea of this podcast. We were discussing the pros and cons of certain exercise selections of one exercise versus another. So recently in podcast 415, a training podcast titled Layering Purposes, How to Best Kill Birds, we talked about how to kill, as many birds with one stone as you can. So if you're going to think of an exercise, how many purposes within that exercise can you find? And can you pick exercises that have the most purposes? And in today's podcast, what I want to do is a little bit of contrasting between different exercises. So the similarities or differences between exercises and what makes one exercise a good choice in some situations, but makes it a bad choice in other situations. And this is very helpful for us because a lot of times we'll pick an exercise because it does a purpose for us, but it doesn't have enough side benefits, or there might be an exercise that has that same purpose, but has the side benefits that we want. And can we identify the differences between exercises to see which ones best suit our needs? So, along with this podcast, I'm going to post on our social media pages, which is under the name Brutal Iron Gym on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm going to post a picture. And what it is, it's my handwritten notes from the conversation I had with the trainer. And that's actually what I'm going to be talking through today in today's podcast. So on the day you're listening to this, go check out our social media pages and check out that photo so you can have a better understanding of exactly what I'm talking about, or at least a visual to go along with the audio, and that'll actually maybe help improve your learning. So, okay, the first thing that I covered with the trainer was talking about workout format. So, in their warm-ups that they should do, and we've talked about the benefits of warm-ups and how everybody should do a warm-up, okay? Not everybody's warm-up is going to look the same, but everybody should do a warm-up, okay? In podcast 407, again, a training podcast titled just Importance and Benefits of Warm-ups. So 407, training, importance and benefits of warm-ups. And in your warm-ups, there's a ton of benefits, but in general, they help get blood flow into the joints, which helps protect the joints. That also, proper warm-ups help even out any tight musculature leading into a joint, allowing the joint to move more natural and smoother, decreasing wear and tear or arthritic or inflammation issues related with joints. A proper warm-up also increases our adrenaline and our endorphins. Adrenaline is our aggression for the workout, and endorphins are a natural painkiller. So the workout, we kind of feel better focused in on what we're doing. We feel better aggressive towards doing it, and we don't feel any kind of side collateral pains as often or as much to a significant degree. So there's tons of benefits of warm-ups. And within a full body warm-up, what you would want to consider is, what am I doing to address the hips, the core, and the shoulders? So for the most part, if you can warm up those areas, you're going to take care of kind of most needs for the workout. So if you're just doing an upper body an upper body workout, you can just do the upper body portion of a warm-up, making sure you have something in your shoulders, making sure the core is active. You don't necessarily have to do something for the hips or the knees. But if you're doing a lower body one, you definitely want to do the hips, the knees, core. And if you're doing something that involves upper body bracing, like a back squat, where you're going to use your shoulders and arms and upper body to brace against a bar, you definitely want to include shoulders. So it's a good idea in pretty much every warm-up to include shoulders and address them in a postural-based way, because everybody needs improved posture. It's good to address our core, and you can address that in multiple different ways, but bracing is one of the best ways to do because it helps with lower back health. And then addressing hip tilt positioning and hip strength, so that way, again, it helps with back health, helps with hip, knee, and ankle health, and just our overall mobility. So a good warm-up would have all of those components in it. And what we were talking about was, for this person, they were training somebody, okay, of a lower level of strength who wanted to get stronger. Now, this could be for you, so you don't have to be training someone else. You can just think to yourself as, okay, and when we say a lower level of strength, means you're not squatting your body weight, you're not benching your body weight, maybe you can deadlift your body weight or less. So you can't really do, maybe if you're not squatting at all, you're definitely not strong in the way that we're defining strength here today. If you don't bench press at all, that's totally fine, because some people do overhead pressing, some people don't do benching at all. But you should be able to dumbbell press. And, oh gosh, if you had to add up the dumbbells together, I would say maybe they would add up to like 2/3 your body weight would be a good like goal. So if you weigh 150 pounds, you should be able to bench maybe like 40 to 50 pound dumbbells. So maybe half your body weight to 66% of your body weight, somewhere there in dumbbells, is a pretty good strength goal. Okay. And then if you don't deadlift at all, there are reasons why people don't include deadlifts in their training, but you sort of should, because we have to pick up things in regular life, so it's good to practice picking them up in the gym. So you don't have to squat, bench, and deadlift to be strong. However, those are normal indicators of strength in the lifting world. So let's just categorize it as somebody who's newish to lifting, and they can't lift super heavy weights yet, so they're wanting to get stronger. The trainer was asking about the benefits of, or the proper placements of, supersets of similar movements to create muscular damage, which helps with muscular development and even fat loss. So if you can take somebody who's not very strong, and maybe you have them do 2 push movements back to back. By doing 2 push movements back to back, that's going to create more stress and damage into their system than just a singular push movement can do. And since they're on the weaker side, they can do 2 back-to-back and not run into risk of injuries. So if I have somebody who can bench 400 pounds, and then I want them to go immediately from a 400-pound bench press to a 5-rep max on dumbbell presses, that might be dangerous as hell. So they could run into some shoulder issues, some muscular issues. So that might be too strong of a person to put back-to-back, for example, a barbell bench and a dumbbell chest press. Now I can vary the rep range. Maybe I'll have them do 3 to 5 reps on the bench and then do 10 to 20 reps of dumbbells. That's a great way to put that together because they're not competing for strength. One is strength-based, the other one is muscular damage, kind of growth-based, or muscular damage in the sense of getting more shape and toning and fat loss. So there's a little bit of caveats you can hear in what I'm saying, and this is assuming a good bit of information maybe. But the idea was, is it a good idea for someone to do, for example, dumbbell chest presses right into push-ups? And the answer is, if somebody's weak and they can't do very heavy dumbbells in their chest press, then it is not a good idea to have them pair push-ups with their dumbbell chest press, because the push-ups are only going to weaken their ability to perform the dumbbell chest press, and both exercises are going to be underperformed in terms of total weight capacity that could be loaded into the muscles. So if they could normally only chest press 20-pound dumbbells, and by adding the push-ups, now they can only do 15-pound dumbbells, that's really going to significantly hinder their development, because the 20 pounds by themselves when they were fresh weren't really heavy enough to cause a lot of muscle damage. So now that they're only doing 15s, that's significantly less weight on the muscles. That's going to cause significant less muscle damage. So if somebody's already not very strong, you don't want to put together two movements of similar motions when you're trying to get one of the movements to get stronger. So if I want to do dumbbell chest presses so they can get stronger at chest pressing, to eventually get stronger to create more muscle damage, I don't want to pre-exhaust or wear out or do anything to hurt the performance of those dumbbell chest presses. I want to let them do the dumbbell chest presses under the best strength scenario they have, so they can continue to push the heaviest weight that's possible to them and truly develop their strength to the best ability. If you wear it out or you put it with another similar motion, you're going to hinder their performance and actually slow down their development. Okay? Now, the opposite is true if somebody's really strong. So if somebody's really strong, say you have a powerlifter who bench presses twice a week, and one time of the week they want to do max effort, really heavy weights, like say sets of 5 reps or less, on a very heavy variation, maybe regular competition benching, or they're reverse banding or slingshot benching. So in a way in which they're doing maximal, really truly maximal weights. So it's not an underloaded form of bench press, it's a regular loaded or overloaded form of bench press. So they're going to do that on one time of the week. Then a second time of the week, they're going to need to train those muscles again, but they don't want to create wear and tear and stress on the joints. So usually on the second pressing day, they're going to switch to maybe something like an overhead press instead of a bench press, or an incline bench instead of a bench press, or they can do pre-exhausting. So maybe they'll do dumbbell chest flies right before they do their barbell bench. So they'll do a set of dumbbell chest flies, then walk over within 30 seconds to 60 seconds, they'll do a set of bench press. Then they'll take a 2-3 minute rest. They'll do the dumbbell flies again, walk over to the bench in about 30-60 seconds, they'll do another set of the bench press. So they're going to do flies right before their bench. What that does, it pre-exhausts their chest, and it'll make their bench press underperform for that day. So if they can normally do, say, 365 for sets of 3, maybe today they're only going to get 315 for sets of 3, because the flies are ahead of that, the bench. That is a good thing, because if 315 feels like 365, they're still going to get strength progression, they're still going to get muscle damage, they're still going to get technique challenge, okay? And they're also going to get mental strength challenge, knowing they have to get under a weight pre-exhausted. But since it's only 315 and not 365, they're going to get less stress in their joints. So by doing a pre-exhaust with something like dumbbell flies, it allows them to save wear and tear on their joints. So for somebody who's very strong, supersetting two similar movements, especially when you have an isolative movement in front of a strength movement, that's going to really help them save wear and tear on their joints while still getting all the benefits that traditional heavyweight would have allowed them. Okay. Now, I realize I'm probably losing some people, but I felt like we were due for maybe a super ultra detailed one. So if I'm losing you here, hopefully you can pick up some good things out of this and maybe re-listen to this one in maybe a couple months after you learn some more. If you're following along, awesome. And if actually this is too easy for you, email me, and I'd love to know what you would love to know more about. Okay? So if you want even more nitty-gritty details, please let us know. So, the idea of this is when we should put movements of similarities together. So a push into a push or a pull into a pull. So two back movements. When do we do that? When do we not do that? So if you have somebody who's weak and they need to get stronger at a movement, you do not want to pair it with a similar movement. If you have somebody who's already strong and they want to lift that day, but they want to save wear and tear on their joints, then you can pair similar movements and allow them to decrease the wear and tear on the joints, but still get all the benefits of feeling like the weight was very heavy. Cool. So that was kind of the first thing that we had covered together when we did our conversation with that trainer. So the next thing we covered is on the right side of the piece of paper, if you're looking at the post on social media. So we were talking about the similarities and differences of specific exercises. So on the paper, for example, we talked about the similarities and differences of single leg stiff-legged deadlifts. So I'll give you a chance to kind of mentally let that sink in. So a single leg stiff-legged deadlift versus in our gym, we have a belt squat, and we will do kind of step-ups on the belt squat, and it's about a 6-inch step-up. And we almost do them in a marching fashion. Well, not almost. We do them in a marching fashion. So they'll kind of step up onto the height with their right foot. They'll step up with their left. Then they step down with their right, step down with their left. So right up, right down, right, left down. So they'll do that with their kind of right foot leading the way. And then they'll do a couple, after whatever reps they want, they'll then do it again in a circle pattern, but the left foot being up first. So they're going to step up with their left, follow with the right. Then down with the left, follow with the right. So what this does, it's basically doing step-ups, but with a 6-inch range of motion, it's not a full-on regular step-up that you might do for glute and hamstring development, where you're going to have the knee at the same height as the hip to do a more traditional strength-based or muscle damage-based way of doing a step-up. So the point of belt squat marches, and we do them against bands, is they do work the thigh muscles, quads, hamstrings, and glutes. But they work them in almost a shortened range of motion that's more relatable to everyday usage. And the shortened range of motion allows for heavier weight loads, which allows you to get kind of like osteoporosis benefits, joint development benefits, and balance benefits in the ankle, knee, and hip. So by doing a shortened range of motion, only a 6-inch step, you can really significantly overload the weight that you can use compared to a traditional step up, which will be done at the knee at the same height as the hip. So that is not going to be as heavy, and therefore you don't get as much loading into the connective tissues and the bones to fight osteoporosis and joint decay. So by doing banded belt squat marches, you get a lot of benefits that are similar to single leg stiff leg deadlifts, but they're also very different. So we went through and just named 2 similarities and 2 differences. There's a bajillion more. But the idea of this game, and why I present this game to you as a trainer or you as someone who writes your own workouts, is it is a great idea to learn how to identify what is similar between certain exercises, but also what is different between certain exercises. So I'll give you a reason here in a second. So the similarities is a single leg stiff leg deadlift and banded belt squat marches. The similarity is they're both unilaterally involved, meaning one leg works independent of the other. So if you have a strength or muscle imbalance or even a joint stability imbalance on one leg versus the other, it will show up in these exercises, as opposed to maybe a leg press, where they're using both feet on a singular platform, and if the left leg's a little bit stronger than the right leg, you'll almost never know. So both of these movements offer unilateral development to help identify weaknesses and improve them over time. The second similarity that this trainer listed was they're both for glutes. They both help your glutes. So a single leg stiff leg deadlift is definitely hamstring based, but it also involves your glutes. And a belt squat march involves the quads and hamstrings, but also still does include the glutes. So if you're picking something that were to stimulate glute development, both of these would be an okay choice. If you were picking something because you wanted unilateral development, both of these would be an okay choice. Okay? Now, the differences that we labeled was one involves more quad involvement. So the belt squat marches involve your quads. The single leg stiff leg deadlifts do not. So that is an important difference to know. So if you're trying to avoid quad development because the person is already quad dominant, then you would want to pick single leg stiff leg deadlifts over belt squat marches. Okay? And then another difference is the belt squat marches are much more cardiovascularly demanding. So they will make you feel way more out of breath than the single leg stiff leg deadlifts would. So if somebody was wanting to, one of the benefits of the exercise that they chose in this space in their workout was to have a cardiovascular stimulus, the belt squat would be a better choice. It would have a higher degree of cardiovascular stimulus as compared to the single leg stiff leg deadlift. So again, those are only just two examples of similarities, two examples of differences. Now, the reason why this is important is if you have a client or you are a person who is exercising to fight against osteoporosis or osteopenia, which is early kind of development of osteoporosis. So you want to work on bone density health. The belt squat marches are absolutely the best choice compared to single leg stiff leg deadlifts. Single leg stiff leg deadlifts will do damn near nothing, and I'd actually argue nothing, for osteoporosis benefit. There's not enough bone compression to actually ignite any kind of bone response. So if somebody has you doing, if you're a trainer and you have a client doing single leg stiff leg deadlifts thinking that's helping osteoporosis, you're wrong. Okay, change that. If you are a client of a trainer and a trainer's telling you that that helps osteoporosis, they're wrong. So don't just, dismiss your trainer and think they're a complete idiot. Maybe they just don't know that thing, okay? So bring it up to their attention. Ask them how they think it addresses osteoporosis. See what their benefit, like what they explain. But if you look at the research and the science of how to use weighted resistance to ignite a body response fight against osteoporosis, you have to have very significant weight loading on the bones. So I have trained dozens of clients for osteoporosis benefits where we've had bone scans done in incremental times of how long we've been working together. So for example, I've worked with people, where every 3 months they'll get a bone scan done, or every 6 months, or every year. And we can see that they are actually slowing down, if not reversing, the effects of osteoporosis in the bones that we're able to load appropriately based on their abilities and strength levels. So, for example, I might have somebody who can get in the leg press, and we're able to have osteoporosis effects, okay, to benefit against osteoporosis in the bones of the calf, shin area, the bones of the thigh, your femur, and the bones of their hip. So especially the sockets of the hip. But the iliac crest, like the top of the hip bone, we're not going to have really any significant effect on. And maybe they don't have good enough posture and good enough upper body musculature to really do anything on the upper body basis of osteoporosis. So I've worked with enough people to know that how much weight load it takes and what exercises work for which parts of the body and even within which bones of the muscle, specific areas of the bone. Okay, so I have tons of research on this. I know what I'm talking about. So, and the reason why I say all that is, so if I tell you single leg stiff leg deadlifts don't help osteoporosis, I know that's a fact. So I've seen the scans of it. Okay, if you do belt squat marches and heavy leg presses, that does help fight osteoporosis, and I know that's a fact because that's exactly what we did for clients when there was no drug support change. Okay, so they didn't change their medication. All we did was we added exercise, and we had it in an appropriate weight load. So I've had people who even, before me, they were doing exercise, they just weren't doing an appropriate weight load. And then whenever we met, we did the appropriate weight loads and the appropriate exercises. Then all of a sudden in their bone scans, you could see the ignition of the difference, the start of the difference. Okay? So if you are working with a client who has osteoporosis, or you have osteoporosis yourself, in our example of comparing just 2 exercises of single leg stiff leg deadlift versus belt squat marches, the belt squat marches are by far the better choice. Now, what if you have somebody who has chronically tight hamstrings, and the tightness in their hamstrings often causes back pain when they try to squat or get into more bent over hamstring stretch required positions? For that person, teaching them how to properly do single leg stiff leg deadlifts and appropriately weight loading them over a period of time is going to help that issue. It is going to help loosen their hamstrings because their hamstrings will become stronger, so where they don't feel like they have to tighten down to create fake strength, okay, to support their positioning throughout the day. They will actually just have enough muscular strength to support their positioning. So for that client, okay, if they have tight hamstrings that often causes back pain, single leg stiff leg deadlifts are by far the better choice compared to belt squat marches. Belt squat marches have a ton of other benefits, but they don't help address tight hamstrings. Okay, at least not as directly as a single leg stiff leg deadlift would. So, that's why it's important to understand the difference when you're thinking of exercise selection. Is what are the similarities of the exercises you're aware of that maybe target the goal that you want, but what are the differences? So if I want to target their legs and I want to specifically fight against osteoporosis, then the belt squat marches are a better choice. If I want to target their legs, but I want to specifically target hamstrings being tight so I can reduce lower back pain, then teaching them proper positioning and proper weight loading of stiff leg deadlifts, especially single legs, is going to be the better choice. So this is why it's so important in programming, is you can be dedicated, you can be consistent, and you can show up every day and do your belt squat marches. But if that wasn't the right exercise, you're not going to get the right results. So programming absolutely matters, 100%. Now, like we said, does execution quality of the exercises matter? Yes, of course. They both are important, okay? So you can't focus solely on exercise execution, but doing the wrong damn exercises. And likewise, you can't have the best program in the world, but doing all the exercises wrong. So they go hand in hand, okay? Now, I think I've already talked for quite a bit. Let me check the time. We're at 27 minutes. Okay. So the last thing we were kind of covering on the piece of paper is if we were thinking of weight loaded, well, we talked about a couple other things, but another one we talked about was simply just the comparison of, say, belt squat marches versus doing a rower as a warm-up. So if somebody's doing a concept 2 like rower, like you do in CrossFit, where you push with your legs, pull with the handle, the similarities of that in belt squat marches is they both work the hips, they both work the core, and they both have a cardiovascular stimulus. But the differences are the rower has more lower back concerns. It's a little bit more lower back involved. So if you have somebody who has a weak lower back, they might have more trouble with doing CrossFit style rowing than they would with the belt squat marches. But if you want to have a warm-up that includes their upper body as well, then obviously the rower is a better choice because you have to row the handle, whereas on belt squat marches, there would be no upper body involvement, or you'd have to add a component to get that. Or say you wanted to do a warm-up and you wanted to focus on balance for that person. That person needed to improve their balance. A rower isn't going to do diddly to improve balance, whereas belt squat marches would. So that was the other thing we had on the paper, was taking something we had just compared was belt squat marches, and we had compared them against single leg stiff leg deadlifts. We were now comparing them against something else and seeing what the pros and cons of the belt squat marches in a different scenario. So the first scenario was the belt squat marches would have been something that we would have put in the middle of the workout, maybe paired with heavy leg presses. The second scenario is we're comparing them with CrossFit style, like regular rows, as what would be the pros and cons or benefits of it used as a warm-up. So this allows them further deeper knowledge of how to best select exercises, not only based on which ones you're comparing, but where within the workout you want to place them. Whether you're placing them in the middle of the workout, at the end of the workout, or at the beginning of the workout. So that will change the similarities and differences that you are going to key in on and want to make sure you include. So That's why I said this is probably going to be a part 1, because that was a lot of information, and we didn't even cover one of the things I wanted to talk about, which was weight load capacity of variable exercises. So which exercises allow us to do more weight versus other exercises, and when is that a benefit and when is that a negative? So maybe I'll come back and address that in part 2. Okay? So hopefully this was interesting. Hopefully it had some help to you. So just make sure that when you select your exercises, it's important to know what that exercise is getting you, but then it's also important to know, is there maybe a better exercise available? So are you just trying to force this exercise in where you want it to fit? Or is there a better choice for it somewhere else? Or have better choice instead of it? So that's just some food for thought, some things to think through if you're a trainer and or writing your own programming, is exercise selection is extremely important. So your programming is extremely important, just as important as exercise execution. Okay? So as a trainer, it's really beneficial to know this, because the more increased quality of exercise selection you can choose, it makes up for poor exercise execution. So if you have clients that can't do things very well, but you pick the best of the best thing, then you're going to get better results out of them, even if they can't do it any better. You're just picking a better thing. Okay? So get you better results, make you look like a better trainer, and